Hello there, and welcome to the How to Market Your Horse Business podcast. I'm so glad you're joining me here today. As you've likely guessed by now, my name is Denise Alvarez, and I have the pleasure of hosting you here each week. And before we dive in and I introduce you to today's guest, who I can't wait for you to meet, I'm going to quickly introduce myself just in case we're new friends, and then we will dive right in. Now, as I said, my name is Denise, and through my business, Storm Lily Marketing, I get to help dream-chasing horse business owners ditch the marketing overwhelm and get the clarity they've been craving so they can grow their business in a way that meets their definition of success. Now, I do that primarily through business and marketing coaching, and then I have some education, such as this podcast, and some online learning resources for you all as well. Because my heart, friends, is to help you as an equestrian entrepreneur be out in the barn or the arena doing what it is that you love to do. And so here on this podcast, you can expect a mix of step-by-step strategies, essential how-tos, and entrepreneurial mindset shifts that will help you not only see what's possible for your business, but I'm also here to guide you through that process so you can make it happen. Now, I'm just going to put it out there. I might sound a little bit different today. Spring has sprung, and my goodness, I have been laid out for the past couple of weeks. So while you haven't heard from me here on the podcast, I typically do give you a new episode every week, but it has been a few weeks. But I said no more. This week, I have got my tea, I've got my water, I've got my cough drops, and I'm getting this episode out to you because I want you guys to meet Nevada Miller. You are going to love her. Now, on this conversation, really, it's an opportunity for me to sit and get to know her and share with you her journey of growing up in a family business, learning the art of silversmithing, and then eventually building her own brand, and then creating an online school for other gear makers. And she's done that while navigating the challenges of business ownership, family life on a ranch, and motherhood. And I invited Nevada. I actually had never met her before. So that's why you will hear me ask genuine questions of, I don't know your story, but I've been watching what she's been doing with her Be a Maker online school for gear makers for a while now. And I love the way they are marketing through email marketing. I love the genuineness of it, the community that I have been seeing. And so I knew that she was somebody that could bring a wealth of wisdom to you guys and that you would be able to learn from. And you will. So have your notepads handy. If you like book recommendations, then Nevada came with plenty of those. She is sharing some of her lessons learned in building her own personal business and then building this online school, what I'm calling an online school. I don't know that she can quite calls it a school for gear makers. No, she does. They call it a Be a Maker school. So that's cool. It lines up with what they said. She's going to talk about how that looks, what she's learned in terms of the basics of business, and how you cannot skip the basics if you want to build your business. She's coming with resources. I'm telling you, she's a wealth of knowledge and so generous. So get ready. You're going to love this conversation with Nevada Miller. Nevada, thank you so much for joining me here today and giving your gift of time to share with your fellow equestrian entrepreneurs. I so appreciate it.
Thank you, Denise, for having me. I'm excited to be here, and I just appreciate your patience as we're going through the life stage of having a toddler and a young newborn. So thank you for fitting me in and making it work.
Oh my goodness. Thank you for fitting me in because I've been there. Like I said, podcasting with little ones at home is an adventure, or business building with little ones at home is an adventure. So completely understand.
That's an understatement. It is an adventure. It's always an adventure. The inconsistencies make it very fun.
It's all about perspective, right?
Yeah.
All right, Nevada, I would love for you to share with us some of your background. So some of my listeners may know of you and some may be meeting you for the first time. So I know that you have had a journey to what you're doing now, which the Be a Maker School is what I want to get to. But I know that before that, you were a gear maker yourself, and then now you're training and equipping up-and-comers. But you have a journey of how you got in there. So tell us a bit about that.
For sure. No, that's exactly true, Denise. It is a journey, and it's every day is a little bit different, and it goes in phases. So for those who don't know me, my name is Nevada Miller. I'm the lady behind Nevada Watt brand. That was my maiden name, and I still go by it for my business name. And I grew up in a family business. My dad is a saddle maker and a bit and spur maker and a hardware maker and pretty much a maker of all things. And my mom is the head office lady and really the glue that holds everyone together. So me and my brother were really blessed to grow up in an entrepreneurial family. We've been around it our whole lives. So we've also learned how to work from a young age, which is something that I want to instill in my children as well. So I was around it all of my life, but I'll be honest, I took a lot of those trades for granted because you are just inundated with it on a daily basis. So I did not start my engraving and silversmithing journey until I was a junior in high school. And I remember when I first walked out and I was like, okay, Dad, I want to learn how to engrave. And he's like, excellent. And he made me do the same boring cut for 3 days. I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I really want to do this anymore, but it's those repetition of the basics that really just hones your skills when you're first beginning. So started in high school, built some things at home, more saddle silver because that was more at my dad's alley. And then I had a little shop in college where I went to school in Bozeman, Montana, where I lived with 3 other amazing ladies, and we had way too much fun together. But I had a little shop in college and did as much as time allowed, right? And I didn't major in anything art. I majored in science, physical therapy, and business, so nothing to do with silver work. And then, as you do, before my senior year of college, decided that I didn't want to pursue that as a career. Met my then boyfriend, now husband, who is a rancher from southeastern Oregon. And I moved out to the middle of nowhere, Oregon, after college in 2016. And so I lived on my own in this little town that, as I told you before we started this, Denise, it has about 5 people. It was pretty populated when I moved there. I think there was 12. 12. So much bigger. It's really decreased in the last couple years. But I had a little shop that my mom and dad got me as a graduation present, and I just continued to build silverwork. That was my full-time job. We decided, me and my now husband Levi decided, I was like, I need to live on my own and do this silversmithing business to see if I can do it in the middle of nowhere before, getting married and moving to a family ranch. That just seemed like way too many life stages to happen all at once for my own sanity. So that was so, so good for us. So I lived in that little town that's about 20 minutes away from where I am now for 2 years. And I really just, went through it with my silver business and learned how to either make it work or not make it work because it was me providing for myself. And thank God it was me to provide for and my dog because those were some lean years, let me tell you. And I learned so, so much in that time doing it full time. Doing it on your own with, of course, I had the supportive family and stuff. They always, loved me and would be there to help me out. But really, that was my full-time job. And that taught me so many good lessons. So jump forward 2 years, we got married. I moved up to the ranch and I continued doing my silversmithing business. And during that time, I am provided with opportunities that I totally believe were God made to start teaching classes in small scale that morphed into longer form courses as we went through the years. So that started with doing just demonstrations at shows for GRS, which is the engraving equipment company that I use, all of their equipment. So I demonstrated at shows their equipment, got people to start engraving, and then that started to turn into single day workshops, 3-hour workshops, those kind of things. And that slowly morphed into week-long courses that I taught at their facility in Emporia, Kansas, which is why I've been close to Missouri ever in my life. So Emporia, Kansas, and those classes throughout those years taught me so much because I think I learned way more teaching people than I think they even got from me because it just teaches you how to explain things in a better way, how to manage yourself around people, how to communicate yourself more clearly and communicate the trade that you're trying to teach. So that was a huge, huge blessing. And before we started a family, this dream of Be a Maker School, which is an online school for the Western trades, for those that you don't know, and it is not just me, it is many other talented makers, that started in my brain. I would say in those formative years of teaching smaller classes, shorter courses in person. And I was like, man, there's got to be a way to, get this information to more people and also kind of align with how our lifestyle was looking. Being a rancher as well, we don't get to leave a whole lot. And granted, I'm not out there every single day. My husband and his brothers and fathers, they're the ones that hold down the fort. But just still leaving with animals is very, very difficult. So I was like, okay, there's got to be other people like me who want to start a family, who are living in the middle of nowhere, maybe can't get away because of livestock, but they still want to learn these So then COVID hit, right? And the whole world shut down. And that was kind of the incentive to really make Be a Maker School come to life because everyone was online, right? Everyone was wanting to learn things, especially wanting to learn things to do with their hands because they were at home for the first time in a long time. So that was actually a huge blessing. We launched Be a Maker School in 2021, July of 21, and we started with just my initial flagship course, which is Fundamentals of Silversmithing, that I teach you the skills to get started in silversmithing and kind of my realm of like Western jewelry silversmithing is how we started. So from then, I have brought people on board to help me run Be a Maker School, like my right-hand lady, Madeline, who has helped me from the get-go. And just some other people that have really made it possible to continue growing that business alongside my silversmithing, my jewelry business and ranching and doing mother things. I hate to say all of the things because everyone's like, oh, you do all of it. I'm like, no, I have a lot of help. Thank God, praise God. And we don't wear all the hats every day. We put on different hats throughout the day, sometimes 17 million times a day, as you know. But yeah, just going through that and growing that business slowly. So Be a Maker School now looks like an online school that we have courses in silversmithing and engraving from 3 different instructors so far. We have rawhide and leather braiding, we have cinch making, we have shat making, we have leather tooling, and there's just so much. We have equine photography, and the course that we launched last year was business for makers, which is huge. And I'm excited to dive in that a little bit later. So all of that to say, it has been a journey. I've been so fortunate to have people that have taught me and been mentors through the steps in life to get to where we are. And I'm very grateful that we can run this business and also kind of take a step back when we need to do whatever the hat that we're wearing that day requires. So that's my very long-winded answer to
No,
what
it was
the journey
lovely.
looked like.
It was lovely. And I usually tell people actually as I ask that question, like, okay, I'm going to tell you now, I know many people will do an entire podcast interview just on the story, right? Because it can be so encompassing. So I know that it's a big question in the beginning. It gives people a really good understanding of why I've even invited you here and why you're somebody to learn from and the experience that you've had and the heart behind the business. I think that's so, so important because it's so unique for everybody. So
Yeah.
I love that. Your heart is that you experienced it yourself. And I'm sure you were having conversations with people asking you questions that you knew could be answered. Like, I love that you built a community of educators, right? So you weren't like, I'm holding all the knowledge, but like, let's have a hub and like,
Yeah.
I'll create the hub, right? And then bring people along. So that's
Which is a
lovely.
good point. I would like to touch on that a little bit too. My big goal behind Be a Maker School from the very get-go was for it to grow apart from me because I'm only one maker. I only know a certain amount of things, and I in no means think that I am an expert or that I know all there is to know. There's so much to learn. And there's so many different ways to skin a cat, right? There's different ways to do silversmithing. There's different ways to do engraving. And I wanted that, yeah, like you said, that community to grow with different instructors. My biggest thing is I want to grow slowly and also with integrity. So all of the instructors that we have on Be a Maker School, I respect them as much as a person as I do in how good they are at what they do. And that's huge for me. And that's why we take it slow. Sure, we could add, take a loan out and make 100 courses, but I don't know if that really speaks to who I want to be as a person and grow that with
Yeah.
integrity. So that's a big deal to me because I think in the Western culture, not just in the gear maker world, but in the Western culture across the board, integrity and who you are as a person is extremely important. And your reputation really does speak for itself. So that goes to, an equine business as well. If you're, selling a horse to somebody and you maybe aren't truthful about where that horse is at training wise, what they can expect to, once they start riding them, once they start interacting with that horse, that gets around. And it's really important to maintain a reputation, own your mistakes. We all screw up. I wish we didn't, but we do. But yeah, that integrity piece is huge to me.
Yeah, that's so good. And knowing that, my goodness, I don't want to jump ahead. So I'm gonna pause that actually. I'm gonna put a pin in that because I have a feeling we're gonna revisit that idea. So before we do that, what I would love, because oftentimes when people hear a story of growth, right, um we give the highlights and that's important. But also I know there were roadblocks along the way for you. And so I would love for you to share some of those that you experienced. It could be with the silversmithing side, or it could be with the Be a Maker, or if you have one for each, however you want to do that. But I would love to hear some of the roadblocks that you've experienced, maybe the things that surprised you, or even if there were things along the way that made you go, I don't actually know if this is what I'm supposed to do, and what made you decide that it is, and you continued on. What would be some of those, Nevada?
So I have a few different ones that pop into my brain. The first one I'll go to is more for those makers that are really just starting out. So during those 2 years when I lived by myself, there were months I remember being like, I don't have enough money in the bank account to go and buy more silver. Like, there's no extra, there's no fluff here. And yet, whenever I would get money, it would disappear so quickly. So there was a mismanagement of funds that was happening really, really bad in those first years. And I won't go into details on how I solved that. We will kind of in the next question that we're going to talk about, but that was a huge roadblock, right? Like, crap, I literally don't have the income to go and buy the supplies I need to do so that I can actually make more income to go buy these supplies again. So I am doing something very wrong, that I'm not paying attention to my profit margin on items. I'm not paying attention to when money comes in, how I'm handling it. So that was a really big deal that I had to work through. And I do have some lessons that I've learned from that. And I will be happy to expound upon that in the next answer. But that was a big roadblock, is literally just not being fiscally responsible with the money that was
Mhm.
coming in, so that I could continue making. So that was a big deal. And again, that would not have been felt, I don't think, as strongly if I had either been still at home, still in college, or married. But because I was on my own, buying my own groceries, paying for things, and granted, I still was very blessed. I had tools that were given to me. I had a home that I got to live in that was okay. Like, I still paid a little bit of rent, but nothing crazy. So there was still expounding factors that made it a very blessed time, but I really don't think I would have felt that as tangibly as I did if I wasn't on my own. So that would be the first one, that I know I'm not the only person out there that is like, I want to make this stuff, but I can't even afford, 6 inches of silver to go and make it. So that was the first one. The second one, I would say my dream with Be a Maker School, I was like, oh, I want to start a family one day. So I want to build a business that can be a passive income, right? Passive income was just everywhere in the online sphere at that time. That was like the big buzzword. And to be honest, it has not been in any way passive. There is nothing passive about Be a Maker School. If you care about something, you're going to just put your heart and your soul into it. And I think a lot of those entrepreneurial people, they build a business to sell it down the road. And that's really not my goal with Be Maker School. I want it to grow a community, grow makers, but I don't want to just sell it and run away. That's not really my goal. So the lie of passivity would be another one. Because yeah, there's a lot of work behind the scenes. And I think especially for an online business, there's way more stuff behind the scenes than people ever see, and how much work that really takes. So those would be my two roadblocks. Yeah, just fiscally not handling money correctly and having a misconception about the passive, side of Be a Maker School of running this business would be the big ones. And also, as a maker, it's a little bit different. You're depending on your daily creativity to actually build the items that you're making. And there are absolutely dry seasons, I would say, of inspiration that happen, when you're just like, I'm never going to be able to make anything again. Like, everything I make, I don't love. Like, I just am not feeling items that I'm creating with my hands. I'm just not passionate about what I'm putting out there. That absolutely happens. It comes in waves. Sometimes it's stronger than others. And that was a big roadblock for me. I never used to keep anything I made. And people would always ask, like, oh, did you make what you're wearing? I'm like, nope, I sure didn't. And I remember that was a big turning point one day. I'm like, why don't I just make something that I actually want to wear? Because people sense that passion when you're wearing something that you really are enjoying. So that would be the third roadblock, especially as a maker. Just your creativity can run dry sometimes, and fighting through that and working past it is another big one.
Mhm. Okay, that's so, so good. Um, yeah, and even back to that passive income idea, I'm just so glad you brought that up, because especially as digital products have grown in the equestrian space, it is something that people assume is just very easy, especially like, I'll just create a membership, I'll just create a course and it'll sell itself because that's what everybody says. And that's just not simply the case, right? For anything, there has to be labor to get the return on investment, to get the fruit. And certainly it's scalable, right? Like that does not mean it's not scalable. That doesn't mean eventually you will, maybe it will, the hours spent and the return will, change. But yes, especially in those initial stages, it's so important to
Yeah.
understand that.
Yeah. Oh no. And I think there's so many courses, online businesses out there. You really do have to put in work to make it work. It's not just this magic thing. And everyone hears, oh, like I launched a course and I made a 6-figure income the next day. Like
Right.
that's not
Yeah.
necessarily the truth for everyone. Not saying that it can't be for you, but there will be work behind the scenes that you absolutely have to do to get to that
Yeah.
point.
100%. Yeah. Okay, so Nevada, I would love if you would share, and you alluded to this some earlier, some of the lessons that you've learned along the way. So, imagining that you're sitting at coffee with a fellow entrepreneur, and it doesn't necessarily need to be somebody that's starting out, just somebody that's eager to learn, right? Because we can all learn from one another. So, whether listeners have been in business for 5 years or 20 years, we can learn from one another. And so, I would love for you to share some of the lessons that you've learned along the way as you have built out Be a Maker as well as the silversmithing business.
Yep, for sure. So I would say I have a few different things that I wrote down here, and I had touched on this earlier, that mismanagement of money. So whenever you are self-employed, you are never guaranteed this steady income, right? That comes in the same amount each month, not hating on anyone that has a steady income, and that paycheck that's the same amount that you can expect. That's wonderful. But as being a self-employed, that's just simply not the reality that most of us are facing. So with that in mind, we have to create a consistency in how we're paying ourselves, how we're investing in our own business through the management of funds. So I read a book back in, I think, late 2016, 2017, when I was going through the trenches of like, holy crap, I have money coming in. And then all of a sudden it disappears and I don't know how to manage this well. It's called Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. I probably am butchering his last name. It's very long. It looks
I say it the same way, so you're good.
or
We'll
Polish.
say
I
it's
don't know.
fair.
Um, and that book was really instrumental in changing how I handle finances. So I took accounting, in college. I understand the basic principles, but I am not the person that loves looking at a spreadsheet and can actually pay attention to that and have myself be disciplined on looking at it. So how I handle money is when that money comes in, I use a percentage system that regulates and provides consistency of income through the lean and the abundant months. So money will come in and I will take a percentage off for my personal decision for tithing goes first, right? That's again, a personal decision that comes right off the top. And that's independent to you. You have to decide if that's something you want to do. Then I have a percentage that goes to long-term savings. This is stuff that I hope we don't have to touch until we're, 10, 20, 30, 50 years down the road, goes into long-term savings, into retirement, because there's nobody saving for retirement for you when you're self-employed. You have to do these things yourself. Then I have a percentage that comes off and goes into short-term savings. This might be, as a maker, saving for a big piece of equipment that you need, saving for a new vehicle so you can drive to trade shows, saving for, a bigger ticket item like building a new shop. Any of those things in like that 5 to 10 year window, that's in short-term savings. Then you pay yourself. You have to pay yourself out of the business as well. And that goes into my personal account, me and my husband's personal account. And then I put the money back into the business. So you have to take the money that you're getting, and you can't just take the windfall months and just be like, let's go blow it all. Let's go buy all of these things. Instead, you create a percentage system, and those percentages were a lot different when I first started. You have to work up to the percentage that he talks about. Another great book that I loved was I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit. Oh, it starts with an S. I can't remember his last name, but I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit. And those, again, kind of depend more on percentages of how you handle money. And that for me has been, huge in changing the trajectory of my business and allowing me to start Be a Maker School and run it for all of these years with not a single business loan, with no outside funding, from saving in that short-term savings from Nevada Watt Brand, my silversmithing business, allowed me to actually launch Be a Maker School itself. So those things really have huge power if you can be consistent. Take those percentages, pay attention to what they are, grow them slowly. You don't just get here overnight, right? But you do need to take into account saving for things, saving for a future, for investing into your business, then paying yourself, again, a consistent income. Now I'm at a place that I know kind of what that income is each month. Even if it does, go up and down, I have it set at a point that is reasonable for what me and my husband and our family needs, but I'm also making sure that I'm taking into account taxes I have to save for, long-term, short-term savings, all of those things. So using percentages to manage money has been huge, and I can't recommend that enough, especially for people like me that would just log into their bank and be like, okay, I have this much money. Like that's what I have, but not taking into account, crap, I'm going to have to pay this much in taxes because we get a lot when you're self-employed. And there's no such thing as a tax refund. That doesn't exist. At least it hasn't for me yet. So yeah, managing money with percentages is a huge one. The second one I'll talk about, it's about a lot on money apparently, is pricing your work to convey its value. And making sure that you are adding in enough profit margin that you get to keep making another day, right? If you are not pricing your work so that you are actually making some dang money at it, you're not going to, be able to keep making. And there's so much guilt wrapped up in pricing your work as a maker because people are like, I'm not good enough. I can't charge people for that because there's a mistake right here. There will always be mistakes. I'm sorry. We're human. There will always be mistakes. And you're not starting out at a point of pricing your work is the same as like someone who's been doing it for 10 years. You're starting out at a point that is reasonable for the skill that you have in the item, but you also do have to mark up that material that you're using and the time that you have invested in that item. So again, you can keep making another day. So pricing your work is huge. And that's, again, something that's been drilled into me since probably the crib, being in a family business. But really, it's just so important. And I get asked more questions about pricing and more worries about pricing than any other thing in my trade. And that goes across, it's not just silversmithing and engraving. That goes across the board for whatever kind of maker you are. And then the last one that I would say is that there really is just seasons to business. There are seasons and months of abundance, and there's months of some lean things that are going on. So you don't have as much income coming in. There's seasons of inspiration, and there's seasons of just making things because you know how to make them. And it's not necessarily a bad thing in each of those seasons. It's more just different lessons that you're going to be learning. So if you have a month of abundance, say, and you have a lot more income come in than you realized, you can figure out how to deal with that extra money because it actually is something you have to think about. It's not just like it solves all your problems. You need to think about it wisely. Like, okay, if this was a really good month, say around Christmas time, right? That people are buying everything for people. Let's say I know that January and February, both are going to be hard months. So how do I make that abundant month carry on and actually have payoffs through those lean months for me? And vice versa, if you have seasons of inspiration, especially in a maker world where you're just like, oh, I got all these new ideas and I love it. And I got, I want to draw this and I want to make that. And that's wonderful. Put time and effort into those things. But there's also so many lessons to be learned in the months where you're like, I don't know any new things to make. I'm going to keep making these things. They're selling. I've made them a bunch of times. If you're in that season, then you get to figure out ways to make that more efficient so that you can create that higher and higher profit margin dependent on the price of your item. So lessons and takeaways for both seasons, but it's really okay to go through that. It is a season. It's not a reality for the rest of your life, but just kind of realizing that there's ups and downs to it with any kind of business, and to just be wise and level-headed through those low times as well.
So good. Okay, I'm going to back up a bit. Profit First. I agree. I love that book. I think the system in it is so smart for entrepreneurs. And when you talked about percentages and that type of thing, one thing you didn't mention, so I'm just curious for you and what you learned about that, is the operating expense side of things, right? So and like knowing the cost of goods, those types of things, does that come into play for you in your percentages? That happens before you take your percentages? That's a percentage of your profit? Kind of talk to us about that.
So I would say that's what's built into that OPEX, the operating expenses that I invest back in my business, that actually final stage of the
Okay, gotcha.
percentages.
Mhm.
That has been, kind of honed over the years. So I know what I kind of need to, either if I have an employee that's working for me, if I buy, 3 sheets of silver at a time, I kind of know what all that costs. So all of that is into the operating expenses. And that takes time to figure out, right? Because you have to see, okay, during this time, like I'm going to make a lot with the abundant month, but I also got to put out a lot of money to actually get there. So yes, the operating expenses, obviously, like if you don't have that plan into your business, it's not going to be able to carry forward. But that takes a little, yeah, I would say that takes more time than anything to just kind of figure out throughout. It takes a couple years, honestly, in my brain to see those seasons of business and see which areas you need more operating expenses to be allocated to and which areas you're like, ooh, I'm being super inefficient there. I need to figure out a better way to do that, either a faster way or there's a tool that can help me do that in a more sustainable way out there. So all of that's built in, absolutely. And the operating expenses for Be a Maker School obviously look very different than they do in my maker business. And those I have completely separate bank accounts, completely separate credit cards, all of those things for those two businesses. I treat them very, very, very differently. But yes, operating expenses, those are built in. And that's like when I say investing back in my business, that's exactly what that is. So I'm paying for those things as we go along. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. And for those listening, I also want you to pull out the part where you're supposed to pay yourself. So
Yes.
that could probably be an entire episode all on its own. And some people are going, oh, that's where that part comes in. Right. And that's what I love about what Mike talked about in the book. He's like, so often what people do is at the very end, after everything else, to see if anything else is left. And then they happen to pay themselves versus if you're going to build a sustainable business, like you talked about, you have to, sustainable means you are making a living, making an income based off of that. So important.
And
Okay,
for me too, I
pricing.
think
Yeah.
just one thing on that is like paying yourself at the end of the day, not every day will be like, yeah, we killed it today, but you do have to enjoy what you're doing. If you hate and dread every single day, like it's going to come across in the work that you're presenting, whether that is you're training horses, whether that is you're on the road hauling horses, or you're a maker like me in the trades. Like if you just loathe going to the shop, like it's going to come across. People are going to feel that and be like, I don't really want to buy from them. So at some point, like you do need to pay yourself because you do need to buy things that actually do bring you some joy. It's okay. Like you can go and buy those things, whatever that looks like for you. Everybody wants to hate on the cup of coffees that are bought. But hell, if you have the money and want to build that into your system to go and buy a cup of coffee, good for you. Go buy the dang cup of coffee.
I love that. I saw a gal one time say that on social media about her lashes. Like, I don't wear fake eyelashes, but I have nothing against them. And she was talking about, like, same thing. She was like, people want to say, like, why this is such a luxury that if you're trying to save for a future goal, you shouldn't do. And she's like, no, just build that in. Give yourself permission. I think the problem is when you don't have that built in, you haven't given yourself permission, then a lot of that can happen. Okay, I have another question for you that is not on there, but as you were talking, one of the things that has stood out to me, and I get your emails and I have for a long time, even though I'm not a maker, because I'm a student of people in their marketing in the equestrian space. And so I would love to hear from you about your approach to email marketing, what that looks like, and your launching approach, because I know that you all launch, if I'm correct, once a quarter. Is that right? Like the beginning of every quarter, you open the doors. When I'm saying launch, for those listening, some of them are like, what the heck? Some no. But essentially, the doors for enrollment and registration to your program open a certain number of times per year for a certain season. So, two-part question. One, talk to me about your email marketing strategy. And two, talk to me about that open enrollment, closed enrollment strategy.
So I will be completely transparent. The email marketing, I do not consider myself an expert, a knowledgeable person, a leader in any way. That is something that we have been learning as we're going. And it only happens because I have, great people that help me behind the scenes to make that happen. So how our emails work for Be a Maker School is each quarter I pick a theme that I'm like, oh, I think that would be cool to expound upon in these emails and have all the instructors weigh in. So it's not just me. Thank God you don't have to listen to Nevada every week for every week of the year. You get to hear from all of the instructors and their knowledge in that area and their take on that subject. So that seemed to have worked well for us. We do once a week. Again, those are themed quarters. So like for this first quarter of 2025, it was joy in the mundane. So finding joy and being able to find areas of passion, even when you're doing things that maybe no one ever sees or that are just kind of boring, for lack of a better term, because not every part of making is necessarily super exciting. You do have to do steps in your making process that are kind of like, I just got to do this to get to the next stage. I love it when it's all done, but during this stage, it's just kind of going through these steps to make that finished project. So I pick a theme, and that seemed to work well for us. And then I want to provide value to people, but I also understand that we are inundated with how many emails we get. And so trying to keep it short, to the point, and just valuable to people is really my end goal. So I will not say that I know really any expert advice, Denise, on email marketing. That's just how we are doing it.
I'm going to
So
pull it out for you. All right. Consistency. You show up every week and you're giving value. Like, that's something I want people to hear. Like, so I will tell you, you're more than you realize in that realm, because you're not just selling every week, you're providing value and you're showing up consistently. So when the doors do open to your program, people have already learned from you and learned that built trust in your brand and your instructors and what you guys do. So there you go. I'm going to pull it out for
thank
you
you,
from
Denise.
what
I
you
appreciate
said.
it.
There's the takeaway I want people to know that I see.
Thank you, Denise. It's so true. And I think what I'm trying to say with those people behind the scenes, I am not great at that consistency. So setting up systems to make sure that they're, you know, taking into account all of your downfalls so that we can be consistent, even though that's not my natural ability, right? I'm not the person to be that super consistent, especially on email marketing. So setting up those systems beforehand, Madeline asked for those emails from all the instructors. We get that. She sets it up so that it's already pre-programmed and goes out. So setting up those systems, just to pay attention to the things that you really suck at is great.
Stack
um,
your weaknesses. That somebody told me that. Staff your weaknesses. Yeah.
Yes, really. And I think that also was another learning. There was a time that I'm like, oh man, like I've got to be better at this. And it kind of morphed into, you know what? I really suck at this. I don't have the passion to put the time into learning it and being better. I absolutely could if that desire was there, but it's not. I'm at a point that I can hire someone who's much, much better at this than I am. So I'm going to do that because I know myself at this point that it's not going to happen. There are times when you're going to have to push through and learn it yourself, and figure out how to be better. But there are other areas, and I'm a big proponent of that, is just I'm never going to put in the time. I'm not. And I want to provide that to my customers. So I'm going to hire someone who does it a lot better than I do. So that's, yeah, another another little thing on that. So I'm glad you made it more succinct and paraphrased what I was trying to say. So
No, you did a lovely job.
value.
You didn't give yourself the credit that I will. So I'll give you guys the credit and your team. Like you said, I love that you said it's a team. But yeah, the
Oh yeah.
consistency is so important and the value is extremely important. So
Yeah, if I was
yeah.
left to my own vices, Lanta, no way. And that's something that I made a decision at the very beginning of Be a Maker School. I have my friend Jamie who runs our social media, and Lindsay who helped build all of the back end kind of system before we launched. I knew from the get-go that I wanted people alongside me. So that has been a very different than running Nevada Watt brand, that it was more just me and was me for a long time. But knowing that I wanted a team from the get-go, and absolutely will preach that till the day I die. Thank God for all of them. But the launching strategy. So first, when we first had Be a Maker School, we were open all of the time. We launched it initially and then it was just open. All of the courses were evergreen. You could sign up whenever you wanted to. And I was like, you know what? I kind of want a group of students going through these courses at a time. And I do want to create a little bit of incentive to sign up for these courses because they aren't going to be available for the next time. And a lot of online courses are usually like launched 1 or twice a year. The reason why we went with 4 times a year, more for people like me or that live in the lifestyle I do of ranching, that some people calve earlier in the winter, so it's not a great time to learn something. Some people don't calve until May or June, so they have a lot of time in the winter. Time, I put that in quotation because it's supposed to be slow in the winter and it's never seemed slower to me. So 4 times a year seemed to work better for the people that we are trying to market towards, right? I wanted to provide opportunities for moms, right? The summers seem to be ridiculously busy, but maybe they're going to have a little bit more time in the fall. If the kids are in sports and they just, have a little bit more of scheduled things that it's not all hours of the day, maybe they're going to have a little bit more time to pursue these trades. And we have so many incredible moms in Be a Maker School that are making it work at their kitchen table with, 5 inches of space that they're building items in. Like there's so many incredible people that are part of Be a Maker School. So, and I did want to touch on too, the reason, our business course, the business of making is what it's called. And it is a business course for the maker who has to wear all of the hats. That course has been in my brain. I would even say like before Be a Maker School was like, it's like a chicken and the egg problem. Like I knew that that had to be a part of it, but then we started with these trade courses first. But I spend probably more time talking about the business side of a trade business than actually doing the trade itself and those skills. So, but I also, in the same vein of wanting to bring on instructors for Be a Maker School on the trade side, I wanted people in the business world who were better at those areas that I am not, like email marketing. So we created the Business of Making. It is a course for a person that really kind of has to go through all of the stages of business. When you are a single member or a small member shop, you have to figure out how to market your work, how to photograph your work, how to price it, how to do those emails, how to actually ship the item, where do I get the boxes I need, how do I take into account the shipping costs. All of these things is built into that course. And you were hearing from me and 4 other ladies. So there's 5 people on that course who I all asked individually in the areas that I really see them shine in to be part of that course. And so that there's so much, so much in that course and so much value for not just a silversmith, like any person in the trade business, any person I really think in a small business, there's so much value in that course that can help you out. So yeah, I love it. I can't preach about that course enough. I feel very passionate about it. And hopefully that comes through that there's so many things that I had to go through the hard way. And so did the other ladies on, on this course who are teaching it, that we don't really want to see you go through all of the hard knocks. Like we want to help you out. We want you to be more successful and build that profitable and sustainable business. So huge, unshameful plug for the Business of Making Be a Maker School. I think there's so much value and I really want to help out people.
Yeah, you bet. And so you guys open that every quarter as well?
Yeah, every quarter.
That one's every
Yep.
quarter. Okay.
So
beautiful.
April 1st is the next time. I'm not too sure when this podcast will go
Oh my
live.
gosh, look at that timing. I'm pretty sure we're going to publish this the end of March. I'm double check. Oh, it's right here in front of me. March 26th.
Wow.
Look at that. Yeah. So, isn't that lovely?
It's like God had a plan. I mean,
Yeah.
what? April 1st, all of our courses are open. It's open each quarter for a 2-week period, and then we close them again till the next quarter. So April 1st for all of our courses. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. We love to answer questions. And there's a lot to look through. So we want to make sure that you're getting kind of placed in the right course that might, suit what you're trying to go for.
Sure. Yeah. You bet. Okay, perfect. Yes, everybody. And that brings me to, well, let me ask if you have any parting advice. I know I've asked you lots of questions and you've given lots of great advice, but if you have one that you'd like to share, go for it. Or if you're like, Denise, I've spilled my guts, I'm done, that's totally cool too.
I will say one that I think I'm speaking more to the mothers or people that are wearing a bunch of different hats during, not that fathers aren't, they are as well, but it is a different hat adjustment. So my dear friend Chloe from Wapai Cedarcraft, she's a amazing beater. If you have not heard of her, she did this post a while ago that hit me so hard. She said, I don't really think that, and I'm paraphrasing, so excuse me, Chloe, if I don't get it right, but I don't really think that life is necessarily about, like we always hear balance, like, oh, you got to be in balance. And I think that that's kind of a misconception and a bit of a lie to people. You're never going to be perfectly in balance. It's rather about adjusting gracefully to what life throws at you. So graceful adjustments. And I have learned that so real in the last couple years of being a mom. That first year was really hard because I was used to going to the shop and graving for 4 hours and doing whatever I wanted for as long as I wanted. And that's just simply not the case anymore, right? But being graceful and kind in how you adjust in those situations, because you are caring for a human that loves you so much. And at this point, you are their whole world. So treating them with kindness, even when they interrupt you, right? Being reasonable with the time that you're going to have to dedicate to something at this point. So adjusting gracefully to whatever life throws you at that day, especially if you are, deal with livestock. There's going to be days when it's just like all hell breaks loose and you're like, what happened in the universe that nothing is working today? Like not considering yourself a failure, but rather there's lessons to be learned here, and to just taking a breath, just slowing down and saying, it's okay. We're going to try again, whether try again that same day or try again tomorrow. So graceful adjustments. Thank you to Chloe for putting that thought into my mind. I have really been living by that the last couple months.
Okay, that's really powerful. I'm going to go look that up. I appreciate that. That's a huge mindset shift. I think that can help many of us.
Yes.
Okay. So lovely. Thank you, Nevada, for taking time to share. Thank you for your gift of sharing your experience and your time, and the gift that you give to your fellow gear makers. 100%. I'll have all the links and things in the show notes. But for those that are listening and saying, all right, I'm on Instagram, where do I need to go? Or I'm online, how do I learn about these courses? Tell them where they should be going.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you, Denise, for having me. I really appreciate it. And I really do hope that this provides value to people across the board. So thank you. So first thing, Be a Maker School. We're on Instagram and Facebook at Be a Maker School. And the URL is beamaker.school. It's not .com, beamaker.school. And then my silversmithing business that's on a bit of a hiatus right now with maternity leave, but it's Nevada W on Instagram and it's nevadawatt.com. So I usually try to post, series of items for sale as I go along. I don't do custom orders anymore, but that's where you can find me and keep up with me. But again, give me some grace in the adjustment period of having a newborn, because I'm just not really active on there right now, not making anything in the shop yet. So I will again, but at this point, we're just focusing on our little bambinos. So thank you, Denise. I appreciate it. And again, I would love to have any of you guys listening in the Western trades. Please shoot us an email, info@beamaker.school. If you have any questions on any of our courses, they all open April 1st, and we would love to have you in them.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Nevada.
Thanks, Denise.
All right, friends, I hope you so enjoyed that conversation. As I was re-listening to it to make some notes for today and for the show notes, I was just reminded of how generous she was with her time and her knowledge, and down to the part of sharing how she pays herself and how she splits out money. And I hope that was so helpful to you. And I want to give you two things that we talked about in the episode, all right? Number one, she talked about opening up registration. And so that beautiful timing, actually, this episode was going to air the last week of March, but as I told you, I've been a bit under the weather. And so today it's coming out, and that means their registration is open. And truly, this was not meant to be a promotional episode in any way, but she was so kind and generous afterwards to send a note and say, hey, I do want to make sure your audience has a code if anyone is interested in trying it out. So depending on when you're listening to this episode, okay, this is April 2025. This code will work for this month. I can't guarantee you it's going to work for other months or other enrollment periods. But if you are interested and you want to check out the Be a Maker School, you can use the code DOER, DOER 50, and I see it in all caps. So that's what I'm going to tell you to put in, okay? DOER 50, and you can get $50 off of any course if you join their DOER level subscription plan. All right. So again, that's the Be a Maker School, and I will have a notes or the links in the show notes for this episode so that you can get there very easily. So this episode is episode number 172. If you go to stormlily.com/172, then you can easily get there and get that information. Okay. And again, this is no affiliate program at all. This was just her generosity, and I wanted to just pass it along to you guys. All right. So if you know somebody who's a maker, if that's not you, but you know someone, feel free to share this with them. Now, the other thing is, you heard me talk to her about the power of email marketing and how they have done that so well and so consistently. And if you were listening and thinking, oh man, I know email, I need to start doing that, then I want you to get my free guide. It is the Beginner's Guide to Email Marketing for Horse Businesses. And if you have been itching to get into email marketing, or if you heard it today and you thought, okay, maybe I can make that work for my business, either way, this guide is going to get you started. It's going to help you know how to get people on your list. What does that even mean and why it matters? What goes in your email newsletter, and really get you started in a good place for your email marketing, okay? Because as you know, social media is a great place to be, but you don't own that audience, but you own your email list. So grab my free guide. I'll have it in the show notes as well, or you can just go straight to stormlily.com/email guide, and you can get that there at any time. All right, guys, thanks for bearing with me today. Thank you for being here. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. I hope you will reach out and let Nevada know how much you appreciated her time as well. And stay tuned, because I continue to show up here every week, as my plan is to bring you helpful, practical, strategic marketing information for your horse business. Have an amazing day, friends.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.